Hi, Mike Urness here, the founder of the ACT Communication Model and the Managing Director of Octave Strategy. And the reason for this video is I just wanted to make it as easy as possible for you to understand kind of the way I work and what I've done over the last 20 years to help a fair number of organizations, probably over 350 now, ranging from Fortune 100 companies all the way down to startups. And what I found was typically I'd be brought in because there was an issue and there was something that I needed to improve. And a lot of times it was going to be in the areas of revenues, so something around amount of revenues, consistency of revenue, scalability of revenue. Or it was going to be in the customer side of satisfaction, retention, amounts of purchasing of services, optional services. Or it was going to be in the management productivity space of what was going on with the collaboration, between the employees in terms of intergroups, or maybe, manager to employees, or direct reports, or even direct reports, going up into the organization. So those are kind of the general catalysts. And I think that your world looks very much the same. Like at any given time, you've identified important initiatives, important strategies, efforts, deliverables that you're looking at doing that ultimately are there to improve profitability, to improve shareholder value, to mitigate risk. And when you look at those, this is really where the conversation begins. When you look at those, you have a general idea of what you're trying to accomplish. And the first thing that I typically work with organizations on is making sure that we're as clear as we need to be about what that is. And so everybody can talk about how they want to improve revenues, for example, or improve customer retention or whatever. But then we need to take that and break it down into more granular detail so we truly understand both what needs to be done as well as how do we get feedback to tell us are we on the right path or not. And so typically there's a decomposition process of that problem or that opportunity that I use 7 steps for. And matter of fact, I have an infographic that is certainly available to you if you'd like on how I work through those steps. But the first thing is, again, defining the primary result, the key performance result that we're looking for. Then we go down a layer deeper in terms of what are the indicators that are going to tell us whether we're on or off. So if the result is we need to boost customer retention by 12 months. So that's great, that's a result. But then what are the indicators that are going to help us understand whether those things are happening? And it could be quarterly review results or something to that effect, but they're going to be data points that are going to provide us quicker insights in are we on or are we off. And then once we have those things, then we take a very important next step and we look at what needs to change within the organization to obtain that desired result as it relates to processes. So what do we need to do differently? People, in essence, what do they need to do differently? What do they need to do better? How do the human performance element need to change in order for the results to be obtained? And then potentially there's even technology at play, really depending on the type of situation. And what I found in doing this year after year after year and engagement after engagement was that we'd be cranking along, we'd be gaining some knowledge, and we'd be really getting some definition going in terms of how we're going to solve this problem. But then it was loose in that the human performance part of it. So when it came time to say, yes, and here our people need to do a better job, or they need to be effective at influencing perceptions, could be a perception around a product or a brand or a price or what have you, or influence their behaviors in terms of what do they do? Do they support us? Do they align with us? Do they move us to in through the organization? Those types of activities, or decisions. Do they even affect? Can we affect the decisions that we need to affect in order for us to obtain this key performance result? So that particular piece, processes were pretty clear. Technology certainly visible and manageable, but the human performance piece was elusive, to say the least. And so that's the second component that I really get involved with And I actually try to do as little as possible in the first part, and that's the problem definition and the strategy. I mean, I think that it's helpful to have an outsider set of eyes and maybe a little bit of experience or additional experience on really working on, are we clear? Are we clear? Do we have what we need to really attack and measure the improvement on this particular initiative? So there is that. But then that's kind of fast. It doesn't take a long time to do that. But then you get into the actual execution, and you start looking at some of the measurement metrics, some of the process improvements can be take some effort. But again, where I wanted somebody to show up when I was doing this overall thing. I really wanted somebody to show up and help handle the human performance side of it. And I couldn't find anybody. The closest I could find was like sales training or maybe some generic communication training, which wasn't specific. It didn't help, really get a kind of a wrapper around this particular series of conversations that we needed to be very good at. And so it wasn't effective. And so that's what I'm doing now, is I am identifying these key and critical conversations that must be improved if we want to have our overall initiatives obtain the results that we're looking for. I help organizations define what that looks like, what those conversations look like, provide them a model for how do we improve, how do we hold our people accountable, how do they help hold themselves accountable for doing a better job of having effective conversations, being able to be in high stakes conversations where the outcomes are really important, and helping them both prepare as well as manage the conversations as effectively as possible. That's the kind of the gist of what I think is the most missing piece in problem execution management in general. And so I do bring to bear that also. And those are the two types of things that I typically work with companies on these days. Both the identification, coming up with how do we solve the riddle, and then where it seems to be most missing is in helping the human aspect of that deliver on who they need to be, how influential they need to be able to support that overall initiative. So hopefully that makes sense, and it's something that kind of provokes some interest, because a lot of times people have been struggling with the same problems, year over year. Like, why isn't my revenue more predictable? Or how do I do a better job of really engaging my clients to, attain better profitability, more utilization, more stickiness, more infiltration into the marketplace, through them. Lots of different things that can be chronic problems. But boy, the air is let out of the tire in trying to solve those things when you have this real quiet, insidious problem of our people just are not as effective as they need to be when they're trying to execute, on these strategies. So a lot of times there was nothing wrong with the strategy. It was how well we actually executed on them, especially during those important conversations. So if you want to see how that may be applicable to your organization, what opportunities that may bring to bear for your organization, I'd love to talk to you more about it. My contact information is obviously associated with this video, and hopefully we'll have a chance to meet sometime soon. Thanks.